I'm discovering having videos of things is somewhat helpful. No. Okay, sorry, now I've got to find the old PowerPoint again. I think I got rid of it. Sorry for the delay, my loves.
I always set my alarm an hour before I have to wake up because then I'm like, yes, I can go back to sleep. Yeah. That is,
I'll wake up and stay in bed until
no, I wake
the
up at
alarm
like
rings my
7:30,
mom.
so I set my alarm.
I hear you with that, my love. I do stay in bed a while. I've never been one to just hop out of bed like whoop de do.
I live like 10 minutes away. I don't live in St. Paul. I live in
All right,
it's just like across the bridge.
we got this. We're screen sharing over here. We're gonna do the view, and I think I let Zeke in the waiting room. I mean, I got him out of the waiting room. I didn't leave him in the waiting room. Okay, and we're good. All right, we're back. Go for it, honey. All right, so remember the last time we talked about blind obedience, right? Oh, we already did that. And the idea of authority figures, right? And the fear of that, how sometimes we put people on a pedestal and we are more likely to follow orders from an authority figure if we put them on a pedestal. Remember the idea of that shocking experiment, right? The people who would deliver the shocks when the learner got the question wrong. And the reason why they did it too is they were in another room. It made it easier to not see them. If they were there in person, it'd be harder to give them the shock, right? So we did all these. I think I answered the questions, all those factors that increase obedience, if I'm not mistaken. Am I right? Right, you got that? Okay. So, and you can move around if you need to see better. I know this is kind of tough with this thing. So now we're going to talk about the Stanford prison experiment. So remember that video I showed you earlier, and I said that guy who kind of looked like a crazed magician with the weird beard. It's kind of off kilter a little bit. That is Dr. Philip Zimbardo. He's a genius. He was a professor at Stanford University, and he created and did this experiment in the summer of 1971. Some of you might have seen the movie. They turned it into a movie a couple of years ago. I cannot show that to you here. I think it's rated R. So why did he do this? 1971, he wanted to study antisocial behavior. And the norms, remember, the rules, the norms are our rule book, right? Some of them are explicit and formal norms. You will not kill someone. You will not steal. You will stop at a stoplight. Some of them are kind of more implicit or informal norms, right? Where you don't pick your nose. I always use a pick your nose. I don't know. That's a good one. But things like what? You say hello to someone if they say hello back, hello to you first, right? You don't cut in line. You don't budge in line. Things like that. All right. So he wanted to study about the norms or the rules and the roles. Okay, remember we talked about social norms, which are rules. I know this gets confusing. And then social roles with an O, which are the parts that you play, right? And he wanted to develop this simulated pretend prison environment. Okay? So he wanted to make this pretend prison environment. And he wanted to see how the people, well, they're young men, he used all men, how they would act if they were assigned a role as a guard, as a prison guard, or a prisoner. And the results were shocking, okay? So they had 75 volunteers. They put volunteer requests all over the place in Palo Alto, which is where Stanford is in California. And out of that, they chose 25 people, okay? They did a psychological evaluation, as you should do, right? This experiment could not be done today. Unethical, and we will see why, okay? And he and his group randomly assigned participants to be either a guard or a prisoner. Randomly, like put a name out of a hat, okay? They didn't say, this guy's really big, he'd be a great guard, and this guy would be a great person. Nope, not at all. Random selection, okay? And what happened is The people who are prisoners were arrested in their homes without warning and taken to a local police station. Okay, and I will show you, you can kind of, I know you might be like, oh, I've got to write all this stuff down. Kind of listen and go back. I promise you I'll put these slides in the Google Classroom assignment today too, okay? And this, you don't have to have this turned in before final grades. I'm not entering these in the grade book today, so have no fear, okay? I want you to take time with this. So without warning, the police came to their house. So say we've got Lily. I chose her to be a prisoner, right? Without warning, the police show up at your house and take Lily to a local police station. In front of her neighbors, pull her out of her house, push her down, handcuff her, okay? That is a startling experience to be put through. I have never had that happen. I do not want to have that happen to me, all right? But can you imagine already, even if you know it's an experiment, you're already starting off with that frightened feeling, right? Okay, very vulnerable position to be in, okay? The prison that they took them to was in the basement of the psychology department at Stanford. Okay, first they took them and they fingerprinted them and everything else. And so they were in this area at Stanford University, that the basement, and there were no other classes or anything going on, all right? And basically they had locked doors with bars on them. They created on small rooms for cells. So they recreated like a prison environment there. And they even had this tiny solitary confinement space. The prisoners received numbered uniforms, okay? They were to be referred to only by their number.
Isn't that how they did it in like Scotland?
Yeah, Nazi Germany. And also oftentimes in prison, you're given a prison number. Some places you'll be referred to as your number. Why do you think people might have you be referred to as a number, like at Auschwitz or in prison? Why do you think that? Dehumanizes you. Excellent. Yeah.
Takes away your pride.
Takes away your pride. You are just a number.
Might be easier. It might be easier to like organize.
Could be easier to organize, but I honestly think it's the more the
Yeah.
dehumanization thing. But you're right. You're right. You don't matter enough, right? It's more important that I organize you better, right? Okay. Guards, so prisoners are given the outfit. They're treated horribly. They're given the outfit. They're given a cell. The guards were given their outfits. They were given uniforms, given sunglasses, those mirrored sunglasses, you know, that some police officers wear, which are really startling because you can't see the person's eyes, but you just see yourself reflected back. Very uncomfortable. And armed with nightsticks. Do you all know what a nightstick is? It's like like a police baton, right? And they were instructed to do whatever they thought necessary to maintain law and order in the prison. Whatever they thought necessary. No one told them that they could hurt. No one said anything about hurting prisoners, about how to maintain law and order. They were just given the prison uniforms, given the baton, and like, okay, maintain law and order. Yes, Mary. No, yeah, that's a good question. Mary wanted to know, did the prison guards know that the prisoners were volunteers? Yes, they all knew this was an experiment, right? They all knew. That's what's wacky about this. Wacky, what a strange word to use, okay? So things escalated quickly, very quickly. Even though all participants were aware that the entire situation was pretend, we are playing a game of pretend. We've all played games of pretend when we were kids, right? They found themselves acting like their roles. Guards harassed prisoners. They, as I say, forcibly escalated their tactics, even though they were told, do not harm the prisoners physically. That's one thing they said, do not harm them physically. They still did. Okay? They emotionally and physically abused them. Meanwhile, Zimbardo and his colleagues are watching all this stuff from a distant office because it's all being shot on film. Zimbardo is considered the warden. And he's getting sucked into this like, oh my God, look at how they're behaving. This is incredible. Okay? Somehow these guards became a united force. Now remember how he said sometimes with the group, you don't want to be the one person to stand out from the group. Think of the Ash experiment, right? I don't want to say the lines that I don't want to give the correct answer. If all my people are not giving a correct answer, I want to align with the group, right? All of this comes together here. So the guards that tried to disagree, they did nothing. And the other more aggressive guards turned on them. Yes.
So, like, were the prisoners like getting out of hand?
Were they getting, well, at one point the prisoners, and that's an interesting question. So Vaughn asked, were the prisoners getting out of hand? And that's a good question. So we go to that, but also, let's hold on that. Were they getting out of hand? The prisoners at first were kind of like, I can't believe this. Like, okay, I'm prisoner 5, 6, 7, 8, whatever. And the guards would be like, hey, don't laugh about it. Go down and give me 20 push-ups. And at first they started joking. They thought it was just a joke. And the guards did not let up. They used a lot of humiliation tactics. These were just average citizens, everybody. Randomly assigned, volunteer for this assignment, randomly assigned to be a prisoner or a guard. Okay? And they start turning on each other. The prisoners tried to stand up and resist. They tried to try to be like barricade themselves in to a cell, had their mattresses pushed against it. The guards broke through because of course they have the key, right? And they ended up breaking them down, right? They would wake them up at all hours of the night. So they were getting sleep deprivation, right? They would be free. Some prisoners of war do. Our prison system, I don't know, but some tactics that people do, especially torture tactics, is like sleep deprivation, right? So for some reason they thought no one was telling them to do this. That's what's crazy. They woke them up at all hours. They threatened them. They shoved them. They would make them do push-ups. Then it got even, they would deny them food. They would lock them in a closet for solitary confinement. Then they would do more humiliating tactics, right? Forcing them to kiss each other, okay? And then also having them do, I don't know if you saw the films, this was before your time, I guess, at Abu Ghraib. What would you call that? A prison for prisoners of war?
Yeah, it was a
Re-
POW prison
in Iraq. And basically, they would have them wearing hoods. They'd have them stripped down. They'd make, have them pose in sexually explicit positions, things of that nature. And those were the same kind of photos or positions that the people did at the Stanford prison experiment like 20, 30 years earlier. Okay? So this idea of degradation, degrading them and humiliating them. And again, no one told them to do this. They said, don't physically harm them. Yeah.
So like, they all knew that it was an experiment,
Mm-hmm.
but like, were they like playing the parts on purpose kind of?
Good question.
That's a really good question.
Honestly,
Why would they act that way?
yeah, I don't believe like that they were just like out of, like they just started doing all that stuff. Like that's just kind of.
We'll show you some more things about that. It started small. So it wasn't like all of a sudden they started and be like, shove you, do this, do that, kiss this guy, everything else. But the idea is that what they showed is that that little bit of power escalated into something bigger.
How come the guy didn't say anything?
Dr. Zimbardo?
Yeah.
Because he was so intrigued. This is even more crazy. Okay? So they did this stuff. And again, Some of the other guards were like, I don't think that's a good idea. They turned on him like, what are you talking about? Don't be a pussy. Sorry to use that language, but that's what people say, right? And they would come in shifts. And I don't know what, again, why did they do that? But the fact is, these were just random people. Okay. So what happened? What ended up happening? Yeah. So this experiment was supposed to run for 2 weeks. 2 weeks. But Zimbardo stopped it after 6 days because he was concerned that someone would be physically or mentally harmed if the experiment continued. Okay. What happened really to help make him realize that? His girlfriend came to see him. His girlfriend was a PhD candidate in psychology. She came to visit him at Stanford to see his experiment. This is all written down. I'm not making this up, I promise. And he's like, look at what's going on. And he was kind of like, isn't this wild? Like, he was getting into just seeing what was happening and almost in a way, but also he was getting great data, right? He never expected it to go this far. And it's almost like he was getting swallowed up by it too. And she saw it and was like, what are you doing? You can't do this. This has to stop. And almost snapped him out of it. He's like, oh my God, you're right. Yeah. I would suggest watching the film if you're up for it. Talk to the adults in your life and seeing if it's okay. The Stanford Prison Experiment. And there's a website about this. I'll show it to you too. So the conclusion that he found, even in the 6 days, so only 6 days, Vaughn and everybody else, to get all this damage done. Most people easily fall into the social roles assigned to them, especially when those roles have strong stereotypes, like prison guards and prisoners. So it's almost as if they gave the prison guys who were the prison guards these outfits. And how many of you like to play dress up when you were a kid, right? It's kind of fun. You think you're a superhero, stuff like this. It was almost like that with adults. So they're putting these things on, and maybe one of the guys is like, yeah, here's a stereotype of a prison guard swaggering. Yeah, right. They got into it. Now think of the prisoners. They're already humiliated by day one. They don't know that the cops are going to come to their house and arrest them in front of their friends and neighbors in their neighborhood. Starts off that way too. It is creepy, but it happened. Do I have more on this? Oh dear me. I will show you the video. I think I'll finish this part too. So how much more of this? Do I have a section? I've got an old question thing on blind obedience for you.
Yeah, you do.
Is this afterwards?
Yeah. This is the last one.
Okay, then I might not have time to do my protest music. We'll see.
Are we going to be in Zoom the whole time?
Okay, so let's go and see. I'm going to exit this for 1 second.
Are we going to be in Zoom the whole
And
class?
I'm going to go over here.
Yeah, I don't think they can hear us.
Okay.
Okay.
And you can see, I can put the link to this, the Stanford Prison Experiment website. You want me to put it on there? This is a big deal. This everyone. There's the clip for the movie. But do you want to see the trailer?
Yeah.
Okay. Here's Philip Zimbardo saying how we went about testing these questions. What happens when you put good people in an evil place? Okay. Now remember, think about the past. Good people. We always look at the Holocaust. Good people, right? Other periods of life. I even wonder here about some of the evil things that have happened here, like with Native Americans, right? With slavery, with Black people, okay? What happens when you put good people in an evil place? Does humanity win over evil, or does evil triumph? These are some of the questions we posed in this dramatic simulation of prison life conducted in 1971 at Stanford University. And I'll try to show you an interview of them the guys afterwards. Because a lot of them are like, I had no idea. Like when you show me films of that, I had no idea that was me. How did I act like that prison guard? What happened? So Zimbardo says here, how we went about testing these questions and what we found may astound you. Our planned 2-week investigation into the psychology of prison life had to be ended after only 6 days because of what the situation was doing to the college students who participated. Yeah, college students. In only a few days, our guards became sadistic and our prisoners became depressed and showed signs of extreme stress. In less than a week. Please read the story of what happened and what it tells us about the nature of human nature. So I can show you this. Do you want to see the clip? Okay. So it's R, sorry.
I don't think the trailer is on.
No, but the movie, I'm not supposed to suggest you watch a movie that's rated R. Why isn't there sound?
Yeah, some of the kids are also.
Harry Styles.
Again, I can see my, oh dear. How do we do this? Oh, okay, sorry.
Now it might be really loud now.
Well,
Be prepared, Mr. Moss. I know I got nervous. I was like, how loud is this gonna be?
You a guard or a prisoner?
I don't think I have the qualities to be a guard.
Prisoner. Prisoner, I guess.
Prisoner sounds like it would be a little less work.
Prisoner.
What's that?
Nobody likes guards.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. This experiment will be an extension of my research into the effects prisons can have on human behavior. You're going to be pleased to know that you all have been chosen to be the prison guards, but under no circumstances whatsoever are you to physically assault the prisoners in any way. But remember, just as you were watching the prisoners, my graduate staff and I will be watching you.
Gentlemen, we all have ourselves a nice talk. Rule number 1, prisoners must remain silent. This is an exercise period. Okay, is it just me, or are these guys taking this thing a bit too seriously? Why don't you give me 20 push-ups?
Who this guy? Thinks he's John Wayne or something.
You address me as Mr. Correctional Officer. This might be an interesting 2 weeks after all.
Why don't you make up your bunk, 8612?
I did, Mr. Correctional Officer. Well, that's not what I see. Hey, what are you doing? It's a thing. What was that?
You sick and not supposed to do it.
Should we step in? No. Let the guards figure it out. Let's see where it goes. Good evening, gentlemen. How about we make this one a night through it?
This is all real. They won't let you go. They won't let us leave.
These are not prisoners.
That's the girlfriend.
Subjects. Those are toys, and you are harming them.
I had no idea it would turn out this way.
I don't know.
That's interesting. That was a good.
So, and then if we go over here, where did that other part go? Sorry, everybody. I got to try to find something else. I thought I had the iBook thing somewhere. Yeah. So this, I have some actual, and that footage that you saw, I have footage that's very similar that really happened, right? That was very,
This is real footage.
yeah, I don't think I'm going to show, we can try this.
Cop comes to the front door, knocks, and says he's looking for me. So they, right there, they took me out the door, they put my hands.
So this is how they arrested them.
The, car, it was a real cop car, it was a real policeman, and there were real neighbors in the street who didn't know that I was, this was a experiment.
Okay. And
I wonder what these people, like, where they are now.
Now,
Oh.
before I'm finished,
this is real.
I want to do something. Then you can give me the blanket and sleep on the bare mattress, or you can keep your blanket
day in, another day. Now, what would it be?
Okay, so what this guy is doing, he's like, okay, the rest of you prisoners, oh, that's going kind of echoey. You can either give up, all of you give up your blankets, or I can force this one prisoner to sleep on the floor. Okay, so kind of pitting them against each other. Why can't I get to the next page of this? So there's more here, but here's.
I really thought that I was kind of behavior.
Okay, so this is one of the guys who was a mock guard. They're interviewing them after, they're debriefing them after.
I really thought that I was incapable of this kind of behavior. I was surprised, not dismayed, to find out that I could really be that I could act in a manner so absolutely unaccustomed to anything I would even really dream of doing. And while I was doing it, I didn't feel any regret. I didn't feel any guilt. It was only afterwards when I began to reflect on what I had done that this behavior began to dawn on me, and I realized that this was a part of me I hadn't really noticed before.
Okay, I guess what I want you to understand too is that person is not necessarily a bad person. Well, how can I put it this way? They did a psychological evaluation. Those guards were not sociopaths. They were not psychopaths. They seriously did an evaluation of that because they didn't want that to happen, right? And again, this idea is, why do good people do bad things, right? And if you look at some uniforms can look intimidating, right? The uniforms of the Nazi soldiers were very intimidating looking, purposefully, right? Police officers' uniforms or uniforms for the military, they can look a little bit intimidating, but there's a purpose to that, right? You're not going to find them wearing florals, right? Okay. It's supposed to have an aura about it of authority and a little bit of intimidation, right? They're putting their lives on the line. Okay. But how that happens, yeah, Lily.
Do you think that we think that the Nazi uniforms were scary just because like we know what happened?
Could be. It could be. But I tell you, looking at them.
Especially the SS.
Yeah.
I think the
You don't.
German Army uniform wasn't typical, but the SS uniform had that.
And I don't know if any of you have seen Star Wars.
There was like a tan and green one.
Well, that's like kind of more in the informal one too. But if you look at the newer Star Wars movies and how the Imperial Army dresses, that's very similar to Nazi Germany. But irregardless, uniforms in general, like that, they're supposed to provide an image, right? Right? When you go to see pediatricians, the scrubs for pediatricians usually have cartoon characters on it. It's an image that I'm working in the medical field. I got my scrubs on, but I'm a friendly person, right? We have you wear a uniform and not coming to school sloppily because we think you might take your work more seriously. It's also a unified look, right? For work, we wear our work uniforms for that image too. Depending, judges in court, they have a uniform they wear, right? But I think what's really frightening about this is that this was so unexpected. Yes, Vaughn.
It's kind of reminds me of the shopping direction.
Yeah.
And I wonder if the cops acted that way because that's the only portrayal really that we've seen of.
It could be. Well, like I said, it's based on stereotypes, right? So if we see stereotypes, and at that time, I think there was a movie called Cool Hand Luke that was out. One of the guys was imitating him. But that's what we see. And again, remember I told you, you're much too fascinating and interesting and evolved and too much to be summed up with one label, a one-word label. even a 25 words or less paragraph, okay? But we see that when we talk about the media, we'll see it more. We see that and we think, if I tell you to act like a prison guard, if I were to say stand like a prison guard, I think I can guess how you would all stand, right? So, and I think having the costumes and then in the situation and no one stopping them, just a very interesting experiment to see going on. And it's yucky, right? We don't want to think that could happen. That is very disturbing. We think, oh, I would never do that. And I'm sure that guy said, I never thought I would do that. Even looking at like, who is that guy? Right, I'm hot in my sweater, sorry. So that's what's scary too, is to realize that these things can happen, that it can happen a lot easier. Like I said, we often look at Nazi Germany and the Holocaust like, that was over there. That was a long time ago, not that long ago. That could never happen because we don't want it to happen again. We desperately don't want it to happen again. But I think we have to examine it and understand how it does happen so it doesn't happen again. Yep, Lee.
Was Hitler like a psychopath?
You know, I
Or,
can't,
or was it kind of like
he had some mental health issues too. And I don't know that actual, there's a lot, I think there was stuff, there's nature and nurture. I think there's he had some issues that maybe he was born with. So I think he could have borderline personality disorder. And then also there's a lot of nurture stuff too of how he was raised. And people say he was an artist. He was an artist. He didn't get into art school. And there's this whole question like, if he had gotten to art school, would this not have happened? I don't know.
was he raised in? I thought he was raised in like some like family of like assassins or something like that.
Oh,
I
don't know about that. I don't know about that, but well, he started it. So I don't, or with assassins, I don't know that, and that can go us off on a wormhole over here. No, that's okay. I don't mean that, but I'm just saying, yeah. Yes. But with the assassination of Franz Ferdinand, which is a group that I like.
Every guy knows every single fact about every single thing.
But they, and it's not going, I'm not saying like that's a bad thing, but like his provenance and everything else, I don't know. And I wish I did know. I could try to find out to tell you. These are all excellent questions. I'm just trying to feel like, oh, we got to finish this and get back on task. And the fact is, he might have been mentally ill. I hate to put that though, because to say he was mentally ill, because I have a mental illness. Like a lot of people have mental illness, and it's like, and just because have depression and anxiety doesn't mean that I do that. You know what I'm saying? So, right, it doesn't make up for that, right? And it's not an excuse. And it kind of puts those of us, this has happened too with some of the shooters, like saying like, well, he was mentally ill. It's like, yeah, there's a lot of us who are mentally ill who don't shoot. Like there's something else involved there. It's tricky. It's really tricky. And I think the thing is we want to understand. We want to understand so it makes us feel safe, right? Like this can't happen, right? There was something really weird and aberrant about this person. It can't happen to us. Yeah, fine.
I wonder if
I need a drink of water.
would have been different if they had like all girls. If they would have acted different towards each other.
That's a very good reason. And female prison guards, I think would be, there's male and female guards in female prisons. I think one of the things, I remember my 8th grade teacher told us that absolute power corrupts absolutely. If you give someone absolute power, there's no rules for them. They can do whatever they want. Chances are that they'll be corrupt. I don't know. And it's interesting though, because when you think about girls and boys or males and females, how males communicate with each other is different. How females communicate with each other is different. Who knows? Maybe with all females, it could be a lot of girl drama because men may be more physical. I've been more hurt by girl drama from women than I can if someone punched me. Okay? That's a little bit more sneaky and insidious, right? So who knows what would happen? You guys are so smart. I love how you're thinking. I wish we could sit and hang out and talk about this all day and I'd make us a cup of tea. I do. So here's my picture for blind obedience. So you see this? This guy's going, come on, sheep, jump over the cliff. The shepherd's telling them, and they're like, roop, roop, okay. Okay, so blind obedience is like authority's partner or best friend, right? Someone who's an authority, it helps them stay in authority if we've got people that are blindly obedient. Obedient with blinders on. I can't see the bad, I'm just gonna follow you. And again, we think of that, again, remember we're looking at conformity and why people do some of the things they do. Again, this is not, remember that social psychology. How do people act, form behaviors, think when they're with a group of people? And being obedient, right, is doing what you're told to do. You take your dog to obedience school, they learn how to sit, say, roll over. Yeah.
Would you say blind obedience is when like people don't really consider the outcome?
Ooh, that's delicious. Yes. Lily said blind obedience can kind of be when people don't consider the outcome. Yes. And blind obedience develops. It's kind of like it's more important for me to obey my authority figure than it is for me to listen to my, what am I talking about? Guess. It begins with a C. Conscience. Oh, you're beautiful. Right? So blind obedience develops when the individual gives all control over to some form of authority. We're talking extreme now, okay? Exactly. The individual stops thinking for themselves and ignores their conscience. And then kind of that release of responsibility. I don't have to make a decision. I will just follow you. But to the extreme, right? To the extreme. Oh, I just bit my tongue. Isn't that smart? Okay, why do people do this? Again, we want to know why. Some groups demand extreme loyalty to be successful, right? We got to strengthen that group. You're one of us, right? They want people to be blindly obedient. And how do they do that? They take away their control to make decisions and slowly try to control all aspects of their lives. And like Vaughn said, cults. The one thing about cults, I took this fascinating class in college about cults and cult behavior. It was very, very interesting. Slowly, and it's slow, because if someone were to come to you and say, hey, come live with us, dress the way we dress, and don't talk to any friends or family anymore, shoo, you wouldn't do it. But slowly they make some promises. I see something in you that's fantastic. Let's talk. Other people talk? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And slowly, then they start to tell you, you know what, you're so special and so intriguing. Your friends, meanwhile, they don't understand you. We understand you. We want to support you. You think they do, but they're just trying to control you because they're controlling people. We're not. It's very sneaky.
Yeah, they always like to make you super vulnerable.
Exactly. And then they make it be so they control all parts of your life. So then you're frightened to leave because you've already cut off all ties of everything. Yeah, what were you going to say, Claire?
I was just saying, like, my family and I, we watch a lot of TV, and
Oh yeah, did you watch the one about the cult?
there's a documentary on Netflix about it.
Polygamy shows, and like it's interesting because like they're born into it,
Mm-hmm.
and they're not allowed to like talk to like anyone around them,
Mm-hmm.
and they're like their whole neighborhood is part of like the same
Mm-hmm.
thing, and it's just like crazy because they're
And again, think about all these terms we've learned too. The social norms, the rules of that club, right? And how you fit in, the roles you play and how you act. Yes, Mary. Many cults do have a religious aspect. Many do. Not all, some do, and some of them are kind of like a made-up thing too. But the idea is often they're looking for someone that is looking for something in their life. They're looking for someone with vulnerabilities. Yes.
There's like a school, I forget what it's called, but it's like an elementary through high school.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like it's like a religious, it's a Catholic school.
Right.
And it's like
Catholic in quotation marks.
the family, like families like live at the school and
Yep.
like they like can't, like they got kicked. I remember because we used to compete against them like in like volleyball, but they got like kicked out of it because like they're like considered like a cult.
Yeah, so the families lived at the school and everything else, and that gets a little bit strange too. There are plenty, you can look up stuff, there's plenty of things on Netflix about it. In cults, often someone joins those willfully, right? I'm not saying, hey, I'm joining a cult. No one will admit they're in a cult. They'll say, no, this is this group. It's not like that. You don't understand. There's one on Netflix I watched, it was called Nexium, was the group that they discovered was a cult. And the people in it didn't realize, of course they didn't realize it until they got out. The blinders got taken off. Gangs. I do this. Fraternities. Now let me, okay, I want to just kind of explain to you that these are different levels, but go ahead.
Oh, just kidding. I had to think about something.
Okay, so some gangs, it's like you're either one of us or you're, and again, with this cult, you're either one of us or you're an outsider and we shun you, okay? So certain gangs, and I'm not, this is widespread. I don't know that much about gang life. I find it fascinating too, but some demand this sort of loyalty, okay? Fraternities, now am I saying all fraternities? Heavens no. But some fraternities, some sororities have a hazing protocol, and it's like, you're one of us or you're not. These are all varying degrees, okay? Militaries, right? Now, I'm not anti-military, right? We want, if there's a war, we want our military to step in, and they have to know how to follow orders like that, because sometimes there's no time for thinking, right? Okay, so that's why a lot of times boot camps, they sort of beat you down and then explain how important it is to follow these orders. They teach you how to follow orders like that. Because in times of danger, we need that, okay? All right, sex trafficking is another one. This is another topic that's just big and dreadful. But prostituting women or children or men, it's hard to get out of that that lifestyle, especially if all aspects of your life are controlled, okay? So your pimp or the person who is prostituting you is providing a place for you to stay, providing you with drugs that he or she's gotten you hooked on, clothing, food, whatever, a little bit of money. There's another psychological aspect of that too. It's a very abusive relationship. You are nothing without me. I've tattooed my name on your neck. I've branded you. You're nothing without me. And you can't go anywhere and be successful, okay? So in desperation, sometimes people feel like, I don't know what else to do. I have nowhere else to go. How can I leave this? And it's all different forms of abuse. How does this happen? Okay, how do people get people to be blindly obedient? They depersonalize. Remember, we talked about the numbers, right? Remove the names, depersonalize them, dehumanize them, remove names, and make people dress all the same in uniforms. Now you're not beautiful, wonderful, individual Marin. You're just 5'2", and you look like everybody else. Some cults even go as far as like shave everyone's head. So you don't even have that distinction between each other. Okay? But again, think about that.
How can someone
Go ahead.
How can someone resist falling into blind obedience?
You know what? And that's a really great question. How do you resist that? This is when you've got to be able to listen to that conscience, right? Everybody. So you've got to be aware. And by teaching about this, we find this out. But you can't lose your sense of self. Now, say you join the military and it's very important to follow directions, but the military isn't telling you, hey, don't talk to any people who are outside the military. Don't have any friends. Don't talk to any family. Only consume the media we give you. You live with us. We feed you everything, controlling all aspects of your life. But that's the whole thing. And I got to tell you, sometimes we're talking about big blind obedience here. Sometimes we just do it in little ways, right? My high school boyfriend was a tumultuous relationship. I felt like I had to be loyal to him, right? Sometimes we do things, again, that we don't really want to do. We ignore our conscience because we feel like we should, because the other person's more important. I have to say that's happened to me, true confession, in some relationships in my life. I've gotten much better and I figured this out. But I have to value myself and my wants and needs just as much as with other people, okay? So sometimes when we're feeling low, we have a low sense of low self-esteem. We think other people are better than we are, or they're correct. It's easy to slip into that. And they're like, you know, what I want doesn't really matter. No, that's not saying I was involved in a cult. Of course not. But sometimes we've got to be careful that we matter. Okay, we really do. So the other way is to depersonalize. These are in extreme cases, but I have to say, high school boyfriend didn't want me hanging around with certain friends of mine. Now, not that he was a cult leader, and he's now my friend on Instagram. How weird is that? But again, you know, kind of trying to keep me away from doing things. I'm not blaming him. We were young. We didn't know. No one talked to me about this in my brain that was under development. Isolate people to a new place. Remove people from the real world and keep them from friends and families. And that's when you can see that in cults specifically, right? Live with us. They don't understand you. Sometimes people use physical force. Okay, I mean, think of the police, those prison guard stuff too. Some cults do this too. Again, when you think of sex trafficking or people using harsh physical and psychological punishment. And they get it so you're down so low that you really think you don't matter and that you can't exist without this person, which is not true, but it's so scary. So scary. It's a slow build over time. How else? They destroy the sense of self, kind of like dehumanizing again, verbally abuse people, give them menial jobs, dirty work. We saw that kind of in the Stanford prison experiment, right? They wanted those prisoners, pretend prisoners, to have blind obedience, right? These guards were on some kind of weird power trip. Physically abuse them. Like I said, defacing with tattoos. Many people who are prostituted are tattooed in a very visible place as someone's property. How do you go get a job with that tattoo? A regular job. There are these wonderful places that are giving free tattoo removal for that too. Again, when we think of now prisoners of war, electric shock. Remember how Milgram did the electric shock stuff? Yeah. Absolutely. Yep, waterboarding is another one, and this is a whole other ethical dilemma of different forms of torture used with prisoners of war. And are they really getting a valuable response from someone when being tortured, or are they giving them the response they want so they stop the torture, right? It's very controversial. Waterboarding is kind of drowning someone, but basically putting a bag over their face, and then is it putting your face towel and then pouring water? So
it's the sensation of drowning without actually drowning.
Yeah, take it as a drink.
Yeah, and so that clings to your face, doing it too, and then pouring water over your face and holding you back.
Like your mask is awful.
Yeah, yeah.
I saw there was this one thing in like.
Well, I have a question.
Sure. Sorry, Mom. Let's do
What
good.
would be the difference between?
I'm loving
What
this.
would be the difference between obedience?
What's that? What's
What
that?
would be the difference between What would be the difference between obedience and blind obedience?
So obedience is just following someone's orders or directions, following the rules. It's good to be obedient. Blind obedience is now not listening to yourself at all. Okay? Doing whatever the person in authority tells you to do, even if you know it's wrong. Letting them make all the decisions for you. And I promise I'll put these slides on I'll put my PowerPoint slides on in Google Classroom. And this is not due until next week. I mean, do it with me, but if you've got to look stuff over, I get it. Did someone else, Vaughn, did you have a question?
Yeah, I saw this thing, like, they like had someone down for like, I don't know, this thing, and then they like had this, like, every like 3 seconds, there would be a drop of water in the same spot.
Yeah, water torture.
Oh, that's terrifying.
Yep, even the sleep deprivation thing or noise. Over and over and over again. Yeah, and some people used to say that they would put a leather strap around the person's head, and then the water on it would make the leather tighten, tighten, tighten too. There's a ton of things like, again, like forms of torture, really. Yeah, and that the sleep deprivation is a real thing, or keeping the lights on, flooding a room with lights so you can't sleep, and then playing really loud music. Anyone see Silence of the Lambs? You're far too young to watch that. Don't. But when you're old enough, you'll see they do that with Hannibal Lecter. Okay? But again, drug them. You hear stories about people who were forced into prostitution and then given drugs and made addicted. How can you leave? Because this is your source of your drugs. And addiction is real, and it's frightening, and it's very, very all-encompassing. And rape too. There's a lot of horrible things that people can do to threaten other people, right? And the idea is trying to control their entire life. You're trying to kill the individuality of the person. All right? So this is heavy-hearted. I understand that. This makes me kind of sad to, like, in a way, like, I'm not doing this to depress you. But if anything, I want you to know what's going on, right? And I think we tell you these things too. And next, again, remember your brain is under construction still. And we all want you to be healthy. You are beautiful individuals. We don't want you to lose that. And it's really easy in this time of your life and as an adult. Trust me, as an adult, it's so easy to be like, oh, no one else in my department meeting thinks this is a problem, but I do. Are they going to think I'm that annoying woman by bringing it up? Honestly, I go through it too. But you're in that phase too, like I said, whether it's relationships or friendships and things kind of just feel uneasy, it's very easy to lose yourself, your sense of self. So try really hard to remember that you're beautiful, smart people. You deserve to be treated with love and respect always, 24/7, okay? If you need a reminder, come and visit one of your teachers. We will tell you that, right? Any questions at all before we turn this in? Well, I'm going to get out of this slideshow. I'm going to post it in there.
This is like so wonderful.
Oh, well, wonderful.
I'm really an interesting lesson.
Well, hey, you guys, thanks for making me feel good. I appreciate that. I really do.
So how might someone resist falling into blind obedience?
So that's a good question, Sean. What do you think? And I was just kind of giving you some tidbits. We know how someone could fall into blind obedience. How can you do that? And I would think one of the things is develop a strong sense of self.
Maybe have a network too.
Yeah.
A network of people
People you know and that you trust. Absolutely. Yeah, Adriana.
Like pay attention to what is going on in your mind, like those little things, like hey, this is
Yeah.
like pay attention to those little things that you do.
Yes, pay attention to this. Genius. Pay attention to those little things that come up into your mind. And I think that all goes into valuing yourself, right? Because sometimes we think, like, again, that one where everyone changed, or that one person changed their mind, everybody else is saying the wrong answer, I guess I'm wrong. That happens to all of us. It definitely happens to me. But I'm ignoring that I can trust my brain, right? The stronger we have, and I'm not talking about being arrogant, like I am the best at everything. Yay me, yay me. I mean, have a healthy sense of, but don't lose sight of yourself. And right now you're growing and everything else. It's kind of weird business, but it gets easier. It really does. I was talking to my son the other day and he said, he's 25, and he said, you're right, Mom. And I said, well, I'm always right, obviously. And he said, the older you get, the less F's you have to give about what other people think. And it really is true. Right now, sadly, it matters a lot what other people think. But you're all extremely worthy people. I know self-esteem is a real issue. I have definite difficulties with that. Okay? But you're here. I mean, we're happy you're here in this world, in our community. Okay? And if anything, it's hard to do it for yourself. Think of your best friend in that situation. What advice would you give your best friend? And give that to yourself. And now I've yakety yacked this whole time, which was a fruitful conversation. I'm going to save that music and protest day. We might do that next week. So I'm going to take that off our little docket over here. I'm going to stop filming this. My goodness, that's enough of that. And first I'm going to stop doing this. So turn this in. So I suggest you turn this in. If you have any, this is going to show up again. Remember, if you have questions about this or anything else, come and see me. Come and see me during flex time or community time. We've got all kinds of stuff like that. Come see me, say hi. We'll get this worked out, okay? All right. Let me see what else. I'm going to stop the